The Disaster Response Legal Service is a free legal service dedicated to supporting people who have been impacted by disasters. After disasters, many people don't realise they have legal problems. Timely legal advice can be life-changing in their recovery journey. We rely on our partner agencies to be able to identify legal problems and refer clients to us as early as possible so that we can help.
The first time I came across legal aid was during the Warrumbungle fires. And this particular couple, they would have visited that recovery centre a minimum of 5 times, and they came in absolutely broken each time they came in to see legal aid. And they finally left with massive smiles on their face, and they said to me, they have really helped us every single day answer my questions, give me new questions to ask, and it really helped them in their journey. Amazing stuff. So I love legal aid.
Legal Aid New South Wales, we have a history of being involved in this disaster space. So we've been working in the disaster space for well and truly over 10 years now. The Disaster Response Legal Service is set up to really target those services that people who have been impacted by disasters really do need. It's a multifaceted service. We do attend recovery centres, community meetings. We also have a disaster response legal service hotline, so people can call in and get legal advice over the phone. We also have a website that people can actually access information if they want to go through things themselves, a little bit of self-help.
It's so good to see that there's a dedicated unit very specifically focused on the particular problems that disaster-affected clients have.
People that, when they go back to their home or get back into their community, can be so extraordinarily overwhelmed. Challenges that run through their mind about what have they lost, what's left, where to from here, how on earth am I going to pick myself up? To have legal services and legal support is fundamental.
As lawyers at Legal Aid, people aren't going to come and find us themselves. We really rely on the problem spotters in Service New South Wales, in Resilience, in local council, in other agencies. We rely on the problem spotters in the disaster recovery centres to be able to identify what is a legal problem that we can help with.
We've seen people that have lost absolutely everything. We've seen people that have had their houses washed down the river. I think collaboration between all the government and non-government agencies has been amazing.
We're just trying to be a kind of one-stop shop for people who've been affected by a disaster and help them get back on their feet. Service New South Wales, Legal Aid, Red Cross, Salvation Army, Resilience New South Wales. There's a whole lot of services out there providing advice and information to flood-affected members of the community.
The collaborative work with other agencies is the linchpin of what we do in the recovery centres because people can't identify their own legal issues. We can help people with their insurance claims, any employment issues, any tenancy issues, any issues with getting a Centrelink payment paid, pretty much anything to do with money or the government, we can give people some advice about what their legal rights are.
Hi Norman, thanks so much for coming to see me today. I understand Service New South Wales told you you might need a lawyer and you...
Yesterday we had a gentleman that lived in a caravan park locally here in Laurieton that was fully underwater. He came in for the first time and he actually brought with him an eviction notice that he's been given. So we were able to pass him on to Stephanie, the solicitor from Legal Aid, who was really helpful in going through that with him, explaining what it was all about to him and what she could do to help him appeal that.
A lot of people associate Legal Aid as being a criminal service or also a family law service. The Legal Aid civil law team is a massive service and we're very diverse. We cover a wide range of legal problems and legal areas. Civil law is also known as everyday law. It's things that cover debt, fines, housing, renting, consumer matters. Employment law, we have a specialist employment law team. So there's lots and lots of different areas that kind of work into everyday life.
In a disaster, insurance is probably the biggest area of law that we deal with. trying to remember who your insurer is and then trying to look at whether you're covered for the damages that you've suffered is a massive task in itself. That's where I enjoy the work that we do, is that we can go through those questions, look at whether their insurer has given them all the benefits that they're entitled to under a policy. And if they haven't, then we advocate for them to get those benefits. There's all sorts of different types of insurance policies, so we really need to sit down and go through their particular policy to look at what applies to them.
People can go their whole lives without having to make an insurance claim. It's just something that you pay for the risk that you think will never happen. And when it does happen, you've got no idea where to start, you've got no idea what to expect or what to do. So even before there are any problems that come up with it, if we can talk to people and tell them what to expect, what they're entitled to, and just talking to somebody who's an expert in it, who's on their side, can really give people a lot of comfort and a lot of power in that situation after they've had such a horrible experience.
Look, I might be biased because I'm an insurance lawyer, but for me, anytime somebody mentions insurance, I think they should be going to get some legal advice or sitting down with one of our lawyers and talking to them about their legal matter. If we can get in there and assist them at an early stage, that could prevent things from spinning out of control and becoming a bigger problem, becoming complex. Some people might just be waiting for a decision from their insurer, but they could be waiting for weeks. If they come to us, we could get in contact with their insurer quite early and prompt them to get things done. Pull the insurers up to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing after a disaster. They're meant to be prioritising disaster clients. In insurance policies, it's quite common for flood to be excluded because it can be quite expensive to have flood cover. But in some circumstances, there might be storm cover or rainwater runoff. And that's the details that we go into at looking at how we can help them. Yes, they might not have flood cover, but maybe they have another type of cover that we can look at assisting them with a claim for. The common thing that happens after a disaster is that insurers try to go through claims quite quickly and they will just deposit a large sum of money as a cash settlement for their claim into their bank account. But people don't know what that amount is for. The good news for people is that they can go back to the insurer, but not a lot of people know that. I think the most common thing that comes out of that for us tends to be the temporary accommodation. Lots of people straight after a disaster, they go and stay with family or they sleep on people's couches. Does them no favours really to try to save money because it's actually a benefit that would be paid on top of what they're entitled to under a sum insured. So that's the sort of thing that we do, is that we go through it and make sure that they do get those benefits.
I had one fabulous older gentleman who came into the recovery centre with his dog and he was sleeping in a tent next to his burnt-out shell of a house because the temporary accommodation that had been arranged by the insurance company didn't allow pets. So we were able to get onto that one really quickly, talk to the insurance company, talk to the local real estate agent to arrange something else, which was covered by the policy, and get him and his dog into suitable accommodation straight away.
There is another type of additional benefit that's not commonly known. Doing the cash settlement, part of that is that people need to remove debris from their property. And the additional benefit of the debris removal can be quite a sizable amount. Sometimes something like 10%. Particularly in the bushfires, we have advocated for clients to receive the debris removal additional benefit. A matter that we had resulted in about $50,000 in an additional benefit paid out to a client. And that can make a massive difference for clients in those areas. They are often underinsured, so they don't have enough to rebuild.
We can definitely help you to look at your appeal options. I can go through the decision with you. So the first step what we're going to look at is an internal review. I had a client come into the centre yesterday. He was very overwhelmed and very tired and exhausted and had been given an outcome by his insurance company that was a denial. He just felt defeated, really, really flat, really low, and thought it was the end of the line. And the fact that I could sit him down and explain to him that it wasn't and that we would be able to help him and walk him through the next steps provided so much relief to him that it meant that he left the centre with a smile, and he said that he hadn't had a smile on his face in a number of weeks now. The second step is a review of that decision, which is an external body called AFCA. which is called external dispute resolution. So we can help you to go to AFCA, the external watch.
When people have a dispute with their insurer, the implications of that dispute can be quite profound. So if someone loses their home, they make a claim on their insurance policy, and for whatever reason, the insurer won't pay out the full amount. We can be talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that can be the difference between someone having a home and not having a home, living with friends or relatives.
Correct.
Even if somebody has already made their claim and it's been already totally paid out as much as the insurance company thinks that person might be entitled to, there is a provision in the General Insurance Code of Practice that allows that claim to be reopened, so our lawyers can help make sure that you get the benefit of those legal rights.
We have clients approach the disaster recovery centres seeking assistance with their tenancy matters. These include rent reductions, repairs, terminating a tenancy agreement, collecting their personal possessions, and making sure they get their bond back after the tenancy is terminated. In the recent flooding disasters out at South Windsor, there was one park in particular where the whole park was wiped out by the floods. We had clients come into the disaster recovery centres who, with children, just had no home. To be able to see the clients in those disaster recovery centres and not only give them legal advice, but hook them up with other resources to make sure that they do have a home, to make sure that the kids are able to get to school or are able to get food on the table or to have some clothing, that brings a lot of satisfaction to the work that I do.
Good afternoon, Finn speaking. We advise quite a lot of people about issues where their properties that they're renting were partially inundated with water or were partly damaged. And they have questions around whether they need to continue paying full rent. They have questions around whether they can terminate their rental contract early or whether the landlord can terminate the rental contract early. And these are issues that come up time and time again, whether it's a bushfire or a flood.
It's quite common that we have clients where we're told that the landlord wants to continue charging rent even though the clients are unable to live in their properties, and this is clearly wrong. And we've been able to give clients advice about their rights in asking the landlord to abate the rent for the period that they're not able to inhabit the properties and to ask for those urgent repairs when they are able to get back in the properties. One case in the bushfires, a property was damaged, the gutters were burnt and the shed at the back was burnt and damaged. When the clients were able to move back into the property, the landlord wanted to continue charging rent but was aware of those repair issues, and we advocated on behalf of that client that a rent reduction should apply because it then became the obligation of the landlord to address those repairs.
Well, I've been down to Taree. Yep. There's a family who've been caught in the floods. Their landlords have said they want rent from them, but they haven't got an opportunity to pay. Their furniture's wrecked. All their white goods are gone.
After disasters, financial hardship can be a really big issue where you've lost your house or you've lost a job or you've lost everything that's burnt down or washed away, and you're unable to meet your regular financial commitments, but you're also just unable to pick up the phone, you're unable to navigate paperwork, you're unable to have that level of functioning that you would otherwise need. And Legal Aid has a bunch of really experienced lawyers in the financial hardship area, and we can help you negotiate with banks. We can help read the financial contracts and figure out what your entitlements are, what your obligations are, what your rights are, to have all of that stop and put on hold while you recover from this. Fabulous. Do you have any other credit cards or personal loans or anything like that?
There's a personal loan.
Because you actually have a right to put your repayments for that on hold for a little bit while you're getting back on your feet and sorting out all this really hard stuff that you've got to sort out. That's not early intervention is really important and can be really effective in resolving legal issues. I've had clients before who've lost their jobs and their homes and had a car loan and just ignored it, just couldn't pay it. And so rather than asking us at the start, where we could have helped get the repayment holiday and all the legal obligations that are on the lenders to do with financial hardship, the poor guy just couldn't face it until he got a statement of claim from court. And at that stage, our options are a bit more limited about the sorts of help we can provide. But thankfully, when he got the statement of claim, he did come to see us and we were able to help him with that, and the debt was put on hold at that stage and he was given some time at that stage to be able to deal with it. But if he'd waited until there was a default judgment or until the bankruptcy or until the sheriff had come to the door to get the car and whatever else was there to cover the shortfall, the longer you wait, the worse it gets.
The main question that clients have about employment is often, can my employer stand me down? A situation during the 2019-20 bushfires where a retail business had been destroyed by the bushfires and the person in that business came in to get some advice from us about what they could do. In some circumstances, an employer can actually stand down an employee. And one of the things that we can do is give people legal advice about their rights in that situation. Another situation that arises quite frequently is where people have been impacted by a natural disaster and actually need to stop work for a period of time. And that can be for a whole number of reasons. People need to give care to a friend or relative. People might need to look after themselves. Something that comes up quite a lot actually is where people actually want to volunteer with a community organisation like the RFS, and people have questions about whether they're allowed to do that under their employment contract, and we can give advice to those people and send them on their way.
With clients who come into the disaster recovery centres, one thing that legal aid solicitors will do is do what we call a law checkup. Much the same way as when you have a health appointment with your doctor.
It has a checklist of legal issues that people may have that lawyers but also other community workers can read through. And I'd encourage Service New South Wales workers to have that checklist with them when they're speaking to disaster impacted people at recovery centres or elsewhere.
We have a whole lot of resources, fact sheets and tools for community workers and for the general public. All of that's available on the Disaster Response Legal Service New South Wales website. If and when a disaster does happen, that's where the most up-to-date information will be.
So how people can get in contact with us in a disaster, we will be at the recovery centres, at community meetings. We have the advice line, and also we have our local offices, legal aid offices, that people can attend, book appointments and go in and see somebody there. And lots of people might feel a lot more comfortable doing that. There's lots of ways that people can get in contact with us.
A key aspect of our work is conducting outreach. We know from the bushfires that recovery is a long process and doesn't end when the recovery centres communities, and made sure that those communities had access to legal advice. Even now, over a year after the bushfires, we're still receiving phone calls and we're still speaking to people who have been impacted by the bushfires and who have legal issues.
Not every service can be at every place, so it's really important that every service that does this kind of work knows what the other services can provide and how they can help, because every service is a problem spotter.
It's a really hard time and we're all here to help you get through it and help you, support you in whatever way we can. People do come in and present in a way that is very overwhelmed, and it's important to give them the space that they need to explain their story and feel like they've been heard.
They often attend in a state of shock or in a state of profound grief or loss, and they wouldn't have necessarily had the chance to absorb all of the issues that they actually have or what they need help with. And one of the jobs that we have as solicitors working for the service is sitting down with the person in a trauma-informed way, asking them relevant questions and talking to them about what's happened. And from that, legal issues often emerge that the person themselves didn't know they had in the first place. The aim is to make sure that the person impacted has access to all the help they need.
It's been a very long, very traumatic time for so many people. What has been a good thing to come out of it is really building community spirit, community resilience, and this has been helped by government and non-government agencies, by local councils, by so many services coming together and working more collaboratively to try and help the local communities, the local people, those who most need it.
I think critically, if we reflect on disasters and events of recent time, we know this is a joined-up effort. We know that we need all the players to be working together, and for a victim of disaster or emergency, There should be no wrong door, no wrong entry point when it comes to looking for support or assistance. But also then be the eyes and ears to point them in the right direction and refer those services. And if they're not willing to go themselves, how about we tap on the shoulder of legal aid and say, hey, this fella down the road, Shane, I think it might be worth having a conversation with.
I'm grateful every day that I can be a lawyer for people and help people and see real outcomes and see real change in their lives. It's so rewarding.